So how do you discover your strengths and weaknesses? Do you want to discover both? Why would you want to do that? That's what we're going to answer in this video. So let's start out this episode with why you want to know your weaknesses. A lot of times, I think society and even in church, we're taught that you need to discover your weaknesses so you can strengthen them. And to a degree, I agree with that, but to a degree, I disagree. I disagree because the more time, in my opinion, the more time we spend working on our weaknesses, we're not really building our strengths into great strengths and becoming great at any one thing. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think the whole point of knowing your weaknesses is really good for self-awareness, but it's also realizing that, hey, those might be areas where I need to bring someone else onto the team. So it might be an opportunity for you to either hire someone who has strengths in those weaknesses or bring someone on board that can just help you out. So if you think through the people in your life, it's really a fun exercise to think through what their strengths and weaknesses are, because you'd be surprised at how much other people complement and fill in those gaps where you're weak. So I think it's a really important thing to pay attention to. And obviously you always want to be a better person, right? You don't want to be just, oh, well, those are my weaknesses, I'm just going to ignore those. But it doesn't really lean towards you being your best self when you're focusing just on your weaknesses, and you can't focus on those things that you really do well at and things that you can really become even better at. So yeah, I'm in agreement there. I think we need to focus on our strengths a whole lot more than focus on the weaknesses.
I'm all about improving and growing, changing bad habits. Maybe that's a weakness. But like areas where I look at and I notice, you know what, this is not an area of strength, and this is an area of strength. One example is I am not a good preschool teacher. I'm not good at working with children. Now, I know I could become good because I'm great with my own kids.
Yeah.
I love spending time with my own kids. But when I have opportunities to go and help, kids age 3 to 10, other families, it's like, you know what? I'd rather separate myself. And part of me is in the past said, maybe I should work on that. And other people probably think, you know what? You should work on that. But in my mind, it's like, you know what? Here's some area where I really have strength, and I focused on that, and I really stand out. Areas that have lots of where I can be really efficient, or I can be really organized and really help get results and drive results. It's really stood out, and I'm happy that I've made those decisions.
Yeah. Well, it can make a huge difference. And I think one of the other things too is to think about that when you are helping and allowing someone to use their strengths in your life, you are really empowering them to grow and be better themselves. So similar example, I'm not good with money, but numbers, bookkeeping, accounting. My CPA can tell me till I'm blue in the face all of the different lingo for accounting, but it's not my strength. So, but by hiring a CPA to help me out, I'm allowing him to tap into his strengths, and I can focus on the things that I'm really strong in. So I think it's also realizing that by giving up some of that power for yourself over a certain area of your life, you could be really empowering someone else to step into their strengths.
As you talk about that, it really makes a lot of sense. And it brings to mind Henry Ford. We look at him historically as being a really, really successful man. Mm-hmm. And if I were to list off what strengths do I know about him, I don't know. All I know is he was really good at building a team around him. And he had a vision. So he had a vision of what he did in creating, systematizing the assembly line and whatnot. But my understanding is he just had a phone with all these different buttons that he could push to get people that were good at other things. When I've done that, it's taken me, I was doing the filming for all the different channels that I produce. I was still the person behind the camera. Finally, I took a leap and I hired people like Ali and Alicia. And even when I started working with them, in my mind I thought this is going to take a long time before I fully trust them and can hand it over to them. But there was an opportunity where I just wasn't available or something like that, where both of them went without me, and they did such a good job. It was actually a blessing in disguise, because I recognized that I could focus on other areas where I'm really strong at. Like I've developed a good skill of being behind the camera, but at the same time, that's not my passion. My passion is actually finding influencers to work with and helping coaching them so that they do it right and so they get results, and creating these systems I love creating systems and coming up with the ideas and whatnot. So we've talked kind of about the weaknesses. We've talked about the strengths. How do we discover what our strengths are?
Well, I think one of the best things to do is to start paying attention. So the more you can pay attention to what's going on in your own life, the more effective you will be.
Like what types of things are we paying attention to?
Well, you're paying attention to just, first of all, what are things that you enjoy doing? You know, if you had to sit through and do that one task all day long for the next few months, could you do it? Think throughout your day, what have I enjoyed doing, what have I not? And I think, you know, the more you pay attention to your own desires on that level, the more self-aware you are. And I think you're going to know what you enjoy doing, what you don't. But then I also encourage people to take a look at, what do people say about you? You know, are there certain things that pop up where people are always picking up on, hey, Valerie does this really well. She's really good at that. The more you can pay attention to different comments people make, the more you will be in tune with some of the things that may be blind to you. You might be too close to yourself to realize that you're good at something. And sometimes you can just ask people flat out, you know, ask people that you trust, hey, what do you think I'm good at? You know, what are my top strengths? What are some things that I am weak in? I mean, that's a really vulnerable question to ask, but it could be a really good thing to ask some people that you trust. You know, you don't want to ask someone who's just going to shoot you down and trample all over you. But, you know, ask some people in your life, what am I good at? And, you know, the last thing that I really love doing, which I did not love doing in the past, and honestly, there's an aspect to this I still don't love, but take one of those personality tests. There's all sorts of personality tests, Myers-Briggs, StrengthsFinder, there's all sorts, Enneagram, just to get a feel for where you tend to lean based on some of these assessments. The assessment might be wrong, you know, and you don't have to evaluate it to the nth degree. The more you can take just a look at what your strengths are at large, it can help you understand kind of where you lean, and you might be surprised at what the results show. And what I love about the StrengthsFinders test specifically is that it can rank all the way down to the very last strengths. So you can see what your top ones are, but if you wanted to see how you rank for all of the strengths in that test, you can see what your lowest strengths are. So your weaknesses, you can see kind of where you lean. And that can be really important for you to understand where you might need to find people to fill in the gaps.
I appreciate that you've shared that part, because I've taken a couple of those and they have been extremely helpful. And I do remember at the first it's like, oh, this is where I'm strong, but look, I'm not as strong over here. I need to work on that. That was my thinking at first. But if I look at it another way of saying, this is who I am, this is what I'm about, and that's why in this type of situation I'm uncomfortable where other people aren't, and that's just how I am. It's like, oh, it's okay to be me.
It is.
As I've learned to accept that, it's come in stages, but I've learned to accept it's okay to be me. I enjoy life a lot more. I don't stress about it as much.
Well,
and
you
then I
probably
can
enjoy your
focus on the
career more
strengths.
too.
Oh, certainly.
Right?
Yeah.
Once you step into, okay, these are my strengths, your business changes, your career changes. It all changes.
Well, and think about if we all tried to be strong at everything, we're just trying to be like everybody else, and so we're all essentially the same and we don't stand out. Here's an example. I'm kind of an introvert. I don't know if that's the best word to describe it, because other areas I'm not, but when we're in a group and they turn on the music and everyone's supposed to dance to get their energy out, it's like I just feel so awkward.
Right.
And so I'm known for the guy who just kind of starts tapping his toe, and everyone in the room thinks that's funny. Let's dance like Nate, and they'll tap their toe and just stand there. And for a while, it's like, all right, I got to start learning how to wiggle. And part of me wants to, because I want to get out of my comfort zone, and I'm thinking of taking like a Zumba or some type of pop dance class, just so I can. But when I'm in those social settings, it's like, all right, I'll just embrace it. I'm the toe tap guy.
Yeah.
It's mixed, you know. I haven't totally figured it out, but it's fun to think about.
Yeah. It's a good thing to think through. You don't have to base your whole life around a single personality assessment, but it is helpful in different situations.
So let's wrap up this video with, what is our potential when we really focus on our strengths?
Okay, so when you lean into your strengths, you really can attract people who need what you have to offer, and you can really attract them to your message. So if you have a message that you feel so strongly about and so passionate about, I really encourage you to focus on your strengths. because then you're going to be able to attract the right people that really need to hear your message.
Awesome. Well, this is Valerie Morris. She wrote a book on influence called We're All Ears. You can find it on Amazon. I talk a lot about keyword research, as you know.
Yes.
And keyword research is a great tool for finding the questions that people are asking that you have the answers for.
Yep.
And so I have a guide that I give away. It's called the Keyword Research Guide. And I'll share it with you. Just click the link below, and we'll see you tomorrow.